Well, good evening, everyone. I hope and pray that you're well. I hope that you've survived this rather crazy day. If you're in the Lockyer Valley with us, it's been an interesting one. It was stinking hot today. I think we used the air conditioning for the first time this season, and then we had the storms roll through, and we got some hail. Nothing particularly dramatic, some pea-sized and a few marble-sized bits of hail. But my goodness, were those claps of thunder something else? A real Queensland summer storm, afternoon storm, to make sure that you're alive. But it's cooled down a little bit. I've still got the fan on, but hope and pray that you are well. Today we're continuing our series in Genesis that we started just last week. And to help us with that, I'm going to read from Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, through to chapter 2, verse 3. Yes, it is the same reading as last week. It'll probably be the same reading again next week. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit and with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seeds according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it, according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the sky, in the vault of the sky, to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky, to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living thing with which the waters teem, and that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. This is the word of the Lord. Alison and I, my wife and I, both have mums who are English, and we've had the chance to go across and visit our relatives there. And while we were there, we looked around the country. It's quite amazing to see buildings which are so much older than what we have here in Australia. Indeed, we saw buildings over there that predate European settlement in Australia. This got me thinking about those businesses which use their history as part of their marketing, making quality leather goods for over 100 years, or providing friendly service since 1927. Or they're less impressive, in business since 2015. I think there might be some tongue-in-cheek in that one. How would it be, though, if your tagline said, "Since forever"? This isn't the way a teenager uses the word forever, which is often along the lines of, "Dinner's going to be 15 minutes, but I'm starving and have been waiting forever." No, this is the real forever. This morning we're going to look back to the very beginning of creation. Go back to the very start. Last week we considered how when we read the opening chapters of the Bible, we sometimes can't see the wood for the trees. We get distracted by interesting smaller details rather than focusing on the big picture of what's most important. Having dealt with some of those trees, we're going to look at what is most important from this opening account of creation. So what is most important in this opening account of creation is God. We can see this in the focus of what's written here by the way the account starts and finishes. So listen again to Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So we have an uncreated world, but God is present, and we're told that God is about to create the world. Now listen to Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 to 3. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day God had finished all the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Now we have a created world. We're told that God has created it and that now God is resting. One way of understanding this resting of God is that God is enjoying his creation, and as such there continues to be the idea of God's presence in his creation. So we have God the Creator present and engaging with the world. The primary focus of the opening of Genesis is God, and the world is to be understood in connection to the one who brings it into being. If God is the primary focus of the creation account, what is it about God that we're intended to learn from Genesis 1? Well, here I ran into a bit of difficulty, because Genesis 1 teaches three main points about God as creator. Those points being that it is God alone who creates, that God created with order, and that God created with generous, abundant diversity. The difficulty that I had is that by the time I'd reached page 5 of my sermons, I still was on the first point about God alone being the creator. So today we're just going to look at that one point, that God alone is the creator of the whole universe, and we'll look at the other elements next week. So then, as I've already indicated, there is no hint in Genesis that there is any creator at work other than the one God here. This is important because it declares that God is the Lord of the whole earth. Nothing escapes God's concern or control, and no one is exempted from giving God the response of honor and worship that God deserves. For many of us, we have grown up only ever hearing this story of creation, and we may struggle to grasp the significance of this teaching. But people in the ancient world would have heard other creation accounts, and the differences are staggering. Here are a few ways where God's sovereign rule as the sole creator is expressed. To start with, notice that God creates light, and perhaps more significantly, God also creates the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. If you have a Good News Bible, you'll see that they sought to be clearer by writing that God created the sun to govern the day and the moon to govern the night. But that's not in the original text. There's a reason why the sun and moon are not given their names in Genesis 1, but are simply called the greater and lesser lights. The writer is seeking to make very clear that the sun and moon are not beings or gods to be worshipped. The greater and lesser lights also have a very restricted roles of providing light to the earth. We also see that they are the moon and the sun, but also the stars, are partly in helping people to know the seasons. But that's about it. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, and the days and the years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. The greater and lesser lights are simply objects created by the one true God. A similar point as to the absolute sovereignty of God is made in the mention of stars being made in an almost throwaway comment. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light upon the earth. Yep, that's it. He also made the stars. These celestial lights are of relatively insignificant consequence compared to the God who made them. This principle of making clear that God is the creator of all, including objects or beings that humans have been known to worship, is also seen in the note that God created the great creatures of the sea. In a culture where sea monsters were feared and as such given reverence, Genesis makes it very clear that any great sea creatures are not to be worshipped, as they only come from the one creator God. This particular word create is quite unique. It's used for the creation of the whole world, it's used for the creation of these great sea creatures, and it's used for the creation of mankind. God, reading that section from the scriptures. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Again, in cultures where rulers are the objects of worship and deemed to either be a deity or the embodiment of a deity, Genesis makes it very clear that all humans are created by God. So whether it be Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, being deemed to be the incarnation or the son of the deity, God is speaking against that in the Genesis account here. The absolute sovereignty of God is also brought out by the ease with which God creates. In certain other creation accounts found in the ancient Near East, the gods struggle to create certain parts of the world. In Genesis 1, God simply creates by his word. Even the account of the creation of Adam and Eve in Genesis 2 does not indicate any difficulty for God as he forms man out of the soil. It is likely that Genesis 2 account is to demonstrate the connection of man to the created order, formed from the earth, as well as the uniqueness of man from the creation, made in God's image, and receiving the breath of God. What does this mean for us today? For many of us, we don't think of anything or anyone other than God having created the universe. Some of us don't even think of God creating the universe, though. Some of us maybe perhaps just think that science gives us the answer as to how the universe came to be. But our modern era is quite different from the ancient times. And even for us, we think of it in a Western sense, but that's not the case for all people. I'd like to give 3 examples where I think people think counter to the emphasis in Genesis 1. Firstly, while most modern people don't worship humans as divine, there are some who think that there are some who think that the very concept of this is to be ridiculous to the point of questioning whether it ever was the case. To counter this, I would point to the current situation in various countries around the world. I was watching a National Geographic documentary about a medical team that went into North Korea. This medical team performed eye surgery on various North Koreans, and when people had received their sight back, there was a video of them bowing down and kissing a picture of the North Korean leader. Here was complete and total devotion to a human being, with people praising their leader for him arranging for them to be healed. The worship of people, whether it is explicit as some form of divine being, or through unwavering allegiance to politicians or celebrities, is challenged by this teaching that God alone is the creator, and alone is worthy of such reverence and honor. So that thing still happens today. Humans are not to be worshipped. Second, while perhaps not being viewed as the creator as such, with the continuing influence of the New Age movement, there are people who seek to find power in crystals and other objects. At the last Malgay markets, I had a nice chat with a person there who was selling crystals and other objects which are deemed to have power. Genesis 1 reminds us that there is one God who is the creator of the whole universe, including all rocks and crystals, and who is both worthy of our worship and also of our trust and allegiance. We are to look to God for power, purpose, and meaning in life, and not look to the creation. Third, and this is probably the most relevant for the majority of us, it is God who is to be acknowledged as the creator, not science. As I mentioned last week and have mentioned on other occasions, I am pro-science. I think science is vital for us to properly care for creation, to develop medicines and technologies which aid humans, and science is also wonderful in helping us to see the complexity and the wonders of the world around us. However, analyzing and describing the world, and even being able to peer back to the beginning of the universe and explain more of the process of how the universe came to be, does not make science the creator or God. The in-depth analysis of creation by scientists should prompt us to give thanks to the creator, not take attention away from the creator. I appreciate this quote from David Wilkinson from his book, The Message of Creation. He says, some scientists, such as Stephen Hawking, claim that a combination of quantum theory and general relativity will describe the initial conditions of the universe. But what does this mean? Is quantum theory the creator of the universe? Genesis 1 says a very clear no. Science is extremely successful, but that success is based on the fact that it limits its area of questions. If my wife kisses me, then as a good scientist, I can say that what caused that was neck muscle movements, reducing the distance between two pairs of lips, a reciprocal transmission of carbon dioxide and microbes, and a contraction of orbicular muscles. I would be entirely correct in the scientific description of the reason for this kiss. But I would also be a very sad human being. There are other issues and meanings and purpose that are to do with the motive of my wife's actions. That is, she is demonstrating her love. Genesis 1 reminds us that in terms of questions and meaning and purpose, God is the only answer. Science may describe God's activity in creation, and it is to be valued for that. However, we must guard against language that suggests that science is the creator. Now, in one sense, I was thinking about the application for us today. And in one sense, we've already considered it, insofar as we recognize that there are still people around the world today who would give their allegiance, their devotion to a human, as if that human was divine, and we're not to do that. We've recognized that although some people seek to find power from the created order, whether that be through crystals or objects of power, we are to find our purpose and our power from the person who gives us the creation, the giver of creation. And we're also to recognize that while some people would dismiss God in favor of science, providing ultimate meaning in life, that is also unhelpful. This is all true. Those guidelines are all true. But I wonder if we should also consider whether we are giving God the honor and the worship he deserves in our own lives. Some prayers that I've prayed regularly for a long time are, thank you for the blessing which you have showered upon us, both personally and material. And I say that to God as a statement of thanks. But I also pray, may we use everything you give us to serve you and bring you honor. Please help us not to look at the gift more than you, the giver. I pray that as desiring that from God, prayers to God. I do say these prayers, but as I've thought about God afresh as the sole creator of the universe, as the only one who is worthy of praise and worship, I've been challenged by this. Do I really give God my full allegiance? Is he my delight more than the things that I see around me? More than the people that I care for? More than the knowledge and the learning that I've gained? Tomorrow morning, when we're at church, we're going to take some time to listen to a song called This Is My Father's World. And there's a truly beautiful version that I put a link to on this sermon notes. And you might like to listen to it as well. And as you listen to it, ask God to help you to live in the light of this being his world. This is our Father's world. Ask that he would help you to trust him as the one in control of all things. And ask for help that you can worship him as he deserves to be worshipped, as the one sovereign creator. Heavenly Father, thank you for the privilege of looking at your word and realizing afresh in a deeper way, you are the one who's created everything. You are the one who is worthy of honor and trust and praise. Lord, forgive us when we have enjoyed your creation more than we've enjoyed you, the creator. Or when we've found people to be so trusting and loving, rather than looking to you, the one true lover of our souls. Father, I pray that we would, as we go through Genesis, we would be moved more and more to be thankful to you and to put greater trust in you. In Christ's name, amen. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I wish you a good night and hope to see some of you tomorrow morning. God bless.